What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, I gave you my season predictions for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Today, I'm going to be giving you my season preview and predictions for the Clemson Tigers. So before we get into that, make sure you leave a like. You can also subscribe if that red subscribe button, again, is still red. Make sure you hit that. Also, ring the bell because, again, I'm doing a lot of these teams. You want to make sure that you stick around so you can learn a lot before this college football season. Also, you can leave comments down below on what you think Clemson's going to do this year, but be sure you'll watch the video first. Clemson was a team last year that was really, really good in the ACC. Again, Clemson was Clemson last year, had that loss to Notre Dame in overtime, but we saw how pretty good Notre Dame was last year. And then Clemson in the playoff semifinal ended up making the playoff, won the ACC, and just got blown out by the Ohio State Buckeyes. It was close maybe in the first quarter, but as soon as Justin Fields came back from injury in that second quarter, the Ohio State Buckeyes took over. So what's Clemson going to do this year? Well, first off, Clemson is losing quite a bit. And by quite a bit, I mean quite a lot. Trevor Lawrence is gone, as is Travis Etienne. So the number one pick in the draft with Trevor Lawrence, of course, what a generational talent he was at Clemson. He was a lot of fun to watch. And then Travis Etienne is gone, arguably their biggest loss, in my opinion, at least, for the Clemson Tigers is Travis Etienne. Also, running back DeMarcus Bowman is gone. He was going to be that guy, more than likely to come in and replace Travis Etienne, but he transferred out. So he is no longer on that roster. A couple wide receivers, Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell, are gone. So they'll have to find guys to replace them. We'll talk about some replacements in a little bit. Carmen Jackson has gone off that offensive line. Not a huge hit, but was still a very solid offensive lineman player. And as of the defensive side, Niles Pinckney is gone, as is Jordan Williams on that defensive line. Mike Jones in the linebacking core is gone. And then defensive backs Darion Kendrick is also leaving the Tigers program. But again, as the saying goes, I'll say this every video, it's not what you lost, it's what you have. So let's look at what Clemson does have. DJ Uiagalelei, we know what he can do. We saw in his 2 starts, he put up almost 900 yards, and then garbage time ended up getting up to 900 yards for last season. More stats coming in my top quarterback videos. He is on that list. But he should be amazing at quarterback. Clemson should be set there. Running back is probably going to end up being Lynn J. Dixon, a very, very good downhill runner. We'll see what he can do. And then I put a question mark by Justin Ross because from the way it sounds like he's going to be healthy to play this season, but not really sure. He will definitely play at some point during the season. It just might not be right out of the gate, which could be a problem for Clemson. But Justin Ross is an amazing wide receiver that missed last year because of a neck injury, but he will definitely be back, in my opinion. Also got EJ Williams out there, a wide receiver, also Joseph Ngata. Braden Galloway is back there at tight end as well. And on the defensive side, a lot of defensive talent coming back for Clemson. Xavier Thomas and Miles Murphy on the defensive line. There are a couple other defensive linemen coming back that are outstanding as well. Balin Spector in that linebacking core. Also, you got James Skalski coming back, who had that nasty hit on Justin Fields. He is coming back as well. When he's not trying to go for the spine, he's a really good player. And then in the secondary, you got Andrew Booth, could be a first-round NFL draft pick if he works at it. And then Norman Powell is back there as well. There's so much more talent that Clemson has here. But again, I only have space for 10 names. So those are the 10 names that I found most important, at least. Let's go ahead and take a look at Clemson's schedule. Here is Clemson's schedule. You'll see dates, home and away, neutral side up top. Of course, if a game is highlighted in green, that means it's going to be a win. If the date gets highlighted in red, it is going to be a loss. Clemson was 10-2 last year, 9-1 in the ACC. Of course, they ended up being ACC champions, and as we talked about, lost to Ohio State in the college football playoff semi-final. We're going to go through game by game. I'm going to talk about some more than others just because they're more interesting to me. So let's go ahead and take a deep dive into the Clemson Tigers schedule. And they start off with what possibly is the game of the decade, game of the century. This is going to be a phenomenal game. A matchup between two top 5 teams in everyone's books. Clemson and Georgia probably will end up being both ranked in the top 5 to start the season. What a way this is going to be to kick off 2021. Clemson and Georgia in Charlotte, North Carolina. A battle between, as I just said, top 5 teams. It could be a potential college football playoff rematch, and it could be a possible national championship rematch. Just depends on how these two play out. And this game is going to be very close. Again, Georgia has a lot of talent coming back as well. I will do Georgia here in a couple days. Very soon, Georgia is coming up. The preview prediction for Georgia. This is just going to be a phenomenal game. As you guys know, is my number 1 game that I was most excited for come to watch this season. I will definitely be tuning into this one. This is going to be an instant classic. I can just feel it. I see a close 1-possession game. And to me, the stats of this game is going to rely on the health of Justin Ross. If Justin Ross is able to come in to 2021 feeling really healthy and raring to go, gearing, ready to go, and he ends up playing in this game, I think that makes a difference. Both defenses are amazing. Both offenses are kind of breaking in new quarterbacks-ish. JT Daniels, of course, at Georgia, was the starter last year when Georgia started to do really good. But DJ Uiagalelei, we saw what he could do last year. And in my opinion, while Justin Ross, I just said, will make a difference in this game, both defenses are going to be playing hard. I just think DJ Uiagalelei has more talent than JT Daniels. I've never been a huge supporter of JT Daniels. I just always thought he's okay, but definitely is one of the top quarterbacks of the year. This is going to be a close one, but I kind of just hinted at it not too long ago. I am going to give this game to the Clemson Tigers. I also just think playing in Charlotte, Clemson's more used to it. There are probably going to be more Clemson fans there than Georgia fans, although it might be pretty split. Again, I see this being a very close game, and the health of Justin Ross could be a factor. But I think Clemson's got more talent just by a little bit than Georgia. I think they're going to be able to take care of business against the Georgia Bulldogs. Very close game, though. South Carolina State is their next game to get it at home, and might as well be a guaranteed win. Clemson starts off the season 1-0. Or starts off season 2-0, excuse me. Then they get a home game against Georgia Tech. And I think a lot of people are not really taking a close look at Georgia Tech. They were not one of my most underrated teams, but I do feel like Georgia Tech should be valued. A lot of people aren't talking about them, and while they aren't going to be fantastic or a huge surprise or anything like that, this is a respectable football team, but still it's a home game for Clemson. Clemson's got too much talent, should be able to win that one. Now, if Clemson's going to be put on upset alert any week, well, there are a couple games that come to mind, but I think one game that comes to mind, maybe besides that Georgia game, although I don't know if I would call that an upset, maybe a slight one, but is this NC State game here in week 4. It's a road game for the Clemson Tigers, and NC State is going to be a good football team this year. They were a huge surprise last year, to me at least. I didn't think NC State was going to be anything spectacular last year, but they were pretty good. And this game could get interesting. It could get very interesting, in my opinion. It could end up being closer than people think. North Carolina State was close to upsetting Clemson a couple of years ago, just couldn't get it done. And while they might be in the same position this year, I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done again. And the odds of them pulling off an upset, in my opinion, are pretty slim. I'm going to go ahead and give this one to the Clemson Tigers. Then they get a game against Boston College, and I thought Boston College was pretty underrated. Again, I had them at number 6 in my top 10 most underrated teams for the 2021 season, and I think they're rightfully deserving of that. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but Phil Jurkovec is a really good quarterback. He's probably going to end up going in the NFL draft, maybe not in the first round or 2, but he will go somewhere in the NFL next year. He's just a really good quarterback. They've got a lot of good weapons, some returning talent. But Clemson, again, it's just the issue of more talent. I do think the story of this game is going to be the quarterback play, because we saw Phil Jurkovec last year tear up Clemson's defense. And if they were going to pull off an upset against Clemson, it would have been last year. But playing in Death Valley is a hard thing to do. And Boston College might have a very slim shot, but it's not a huge one. while I could see them maybe doing it if they play an absolutely perfect game, perfect games are very rare. I'm going to give this one to the Clemson Tigers, and then they get their bye week. So their bye week comes in week 6. I don't know that this is a great time for a bye week, but nonetheless, you're taken with what you're given. Then they have to play a game against Syracuse. Syracuse, probably the worst team in the ACC. I know it's a road game, but Syracuse is nothing special. Clemson should easily be able to win that one. Then they get a road game against Pitt. Oof, this is another game that people might point to and say, Clemson's going to lose a game. It's besides Georgia, it's going to be here. Pitt, as they talked about, is also an underrated team, and they came in at number, I believe, 3 in my most underrated teams, 2 or 3. I know it was one of the 2. But Pitt, again, Kenny Pickett going to be back at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Panthers. This is another all-around solid team, and upset alert, Clemson should look out for. This game is going to be closer than a lot of people think, in my opinion. But again, same argument for NC State. Just too much talent on the Clemson side. Should be able to take care of business and win that one. Next up, they get Florida State. It's a home game, and of course, we know Florida State has been on the decline. Now, Mike Norvell is there, and while there wasn't huge improvements last year, they are getting Mackenzie Milton at quarterback, and if he's healthy and ready to go, Florida State could end up being a dangerous team last year, but again, it all depends on the health of Mackenzie Milton, and again, that's just all uncertain. If Florida State can really turn it around, this could be a competitive game for maybe a little bit, but Clemson just looks like a team that's ready to play 4 quarters this year. I'm going to give this one to the Clemson Tigers as well. Louisville, a road game for the Clemson Tigers. I just don't see this one being close. Much like Syracuse, Louisville, not a great team. Signs of decline over the past couple years as well. They couldn't figure out what a thing called defense was last year, and I don't see that changing this year. I predict Clemson will hang 50 on the Louisville Cardinals or more. Same goes for the UConn Huskies. Highlight that in green as well. They shouldn't lose to UConn. And UConn, of course, didn't play football last year, but now not being part of a conference, they are now an independent. Not going to help their cause. Being independent does not make you better. Maybe UConn has slight improvements this year, but they're not going to be anything competitive towards the Clemson Tigers. Last 2 games of the season, Wake Forest and South Carolina. We'll talk about Wake Forest a little bit. I don't know necessarily what to think about Wake Forest this year. They got a lot of nice pieces coming back, but there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle still missing for Wake Forest, and it's a lot smaller of a puzzle than what you're going to find at Clemson. Clemson has got a 10,000-piece puzzle that they're almost close to finishing. Wake Forest has got a little cute kids 24-piece puzzle, if you remember putting those back together. I don't see this game being close, especially being a home game for Clemson. Wake Forest going to go down. Clemson should win that one easily. And now they have a game against South Carolina. An interesting game in my book, and I think it'll be more competitive than it has been in years past. South Carolina's got a lot of good playmakers on offense and defense. Of course, they're going to have to find a quarterback as Ryan Helinski transferred out. And that quarterback position has always been a question. But South Carolina's, I think, going to be a little bit better than people think. They got a great running back in Kevin Harris. They got some excellent players in that defensive front 7. And I think that's where this game is going to be won. The defensive front 7, it's going to be a battle. Which defensive front 7 can make the quarterback, can scare the quarterback more. And there's just more names that you need to watch out for on that Clemson front 7. While this game could be maybe a little bit closer than people think, I still think Clemson's going to win this one by double digits to cap off Clemson Tigers 2021 season. And with that, all of those games are highlighted in green, and that means that I predict Clemson is going to go 12-0 in the 2021 season. This team has got a lot of talent, and 12-0 is my prediction. I could flip-flop the Georgia game very easily if Justin Ross seems to not be super healthy, but Clemson still looked good in the spring. I predict that they will win that one. I think they're the better team coming into that game, and I think ultimately they're going to be the better team coming out of it. Again, everyone being at full strength. Georgia seems to be, if Clemson can be. That's just going to be a fun game to watch. I mean, best game of 2020, definitely in my book. The record range, I do Best case scenario, worst case scenario. Of course, best case scenario is 12-0, what I predict for the Clemson Tigers. But then I also could see them going 10-2. Like I said, if they end up losing to Georgia, hey, it's the first week of the season. Don't get your hopes up. But again, like I talked about, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, Florida State, maybe even South Carolina. There are some dangerous games that if Clemson is not careful, they could slip up and lose. So 10-2 is my absolute worst case scenario for the Clemson Tigers. I don't see them doing any worse than that. But with a record like 12-0, as I'm predicting, they should be on their way to another ACC title game and possibly another berth in the college football playoff. That's going to do it for the Clemson Tigers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you think Clemson's going to do this year? Leave a like. You can hit that subscribe button as well. Ring the bell because next up is the Oklahoma Sooners. Ooh, a really interesting team coming into 2020. Oklahoma's next on the chopping block. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you tailgaters in the next one. Goodbye.